All right, let's talk about Mexico, because Mexico keeps pissing off the U.S. by trying to govern their own country.
Wow.
And the U.S. no le gusta. We are actually going to talk about the price of corn today, and the price of tortillas is applicable to this story because the United States is warning Mexico, if you go through with this law, which I'm going to tell you about in a second, your tortillas are going to get more expensive. And so you better think this through, which I love that we're talking about that on Taco Tuesday.
Right.
Because
we just had tortillas tonight, actually.
We did, actually, from my Mexican brother-in-law who made them.
Yeah.
Not with GMO corn from the United States, though. Okay, this week, the U.S. Foreign Agriculture Service said that it has grave concerns about Mexico implementing an upcoming law that prohibits GMO corn, that's genetically modified corn. The U.S. is saying you can't do this, and it's not based on science. Here is the statement from the Foreign Agriculture Service. And I'm going to read you a little excerpt because I know that's a terrible clip. I just want to show you the statement. Now, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador put in place a law that will prohibit his country from buying GMOs by 2024. And as a result of this meeting in Mexico City between the Department of Agriculture and officials in Mexico, Mexico did agree to move this deadline to 2025. They offered that as an option, but they did still say we're going to implement. They didn't actually formally agree to 2025. That was a compromise. The U.S. says no. Here's what the statement says. It says Mexico's approach, which is not grounded in science, still threatens to disrupt billions of dollars in bilateral agricultural trade, cause serious harm to U.S. farmers and Mexican livestock producers, and stifle important innovations needed to help producers respond to pressing climate and food security challenges. Now, this not based in science bit is interesting because, the government doesn't really have a monopoly on based in science regulations since the pandemic. I don't think they can use that one for a while. Like, they need a timeout on saying that they're basing policies in science because they abused the privilege. Now, the ban calls for a phase out of glyphosate. I practiced saying it, glyphosate. Well, there is actually some science about glyphosate from 2008 in a journal called Science of the Total Environment. Here's the journal article presenting concerns that use of this pesticide can be correlated with all types of negative health effects. Let's just pull out the highlights from the article. It can degrade product AMPA. It can accumulate in the environment. Chronic low dose effects on animals and humans have been documented. Shifts in microbial community composition of soil, plants, and animals' guts resulted. And also it can lead to antibiotic resistance. And it may serve as one of the main drivers, in fact, of antibiotic resistance. So there actually is some science that if Mexico wants to find alternatives to these pesticides, and, maybe they should be able to do that if they want to. A group called World Perspectives says that this will be really, really bad for food producers and growers. Here's just a summary of what they put out last year. They said it will increase the cost of corn by 19%. The average cost will go up. Prices will rise 48% to $8.14 a bushel. Tortilla prices will rise 16% on average. Poultry production in Mexico will fall. Mexico's GDP will fall by $11.72 billion over 10 years just because of the one product, corn. An annual loss of 56,000 jobs, which will reduce labor income by $2.99 billion. Okay. Well, who paid for this? If you zoom in on the bottom, and I know that you can't really read this, but I just want to point out that it's there. I know. I'm just telling you this is at the bottom, and I'm going to tell you. Let's see who paid for this. Well, the National Association of Agriculture, National Corn Growers Association, Corn Refiners Association. So lobbyist groups, basically U.S. interest and lobbyist groups paid for these numbers. They are saying that it's just unlikely that enough non-GMO corn will be available in international markets by 2024 to meet Mexico's needs, and this will lead to food insecurity and increased prices for many of its staple foods. But that's not what farmers say. In fact, here is from an article today from an organic and non-GMO report from all manner of seed producers saying, we're ready, actually. We have been ready. I have absolutely no doubt that the U.S. could meet Mexico's demand for non-GMO corn, says this one seed producer. All that's needed is market signals, and farmers will do it. Another non-GMO seed provider. If we wanted to do that, the genetics are available. We can. Another guy saying, yeah, there's a $450 million market in corn growing from Nebraska to Mexico. We could fill the non-GMO demand from Nebraska if we had, just a little public support. Like, we can do this. We are willing to do this. It looks to me like it's a matter of subsidies. It's just a matter of who has the money to lobby the government to get the subsidies in order to sell the corn. Corn is one of the most, if not the most, subsidized crops in the United States. So here we have an example of the government choosing winners and losers. And they are choosing to lobby on behalf of GMO providers instead of non-GMO providers. Why?
I wonder how much of that money tracks back to Mr. Gates. I saw a diagram the other day that showed Bill Gates in the middle and all the money he has flowing out to all the things, like many of the things we talk about on this show, end up tying back to Bill Gates in some way or another. And is it coincidence that he's buying up all the farmland that he would be involved in this as well?
Oh, no. I mean, taking away independent farms, buying up all of the farmland, and then, of course, all of the government subsidies of these particular farms.
Yes.
And these genetically modified products.
And the patents that Monsanto has on seeds that, prevents prevents non-GMO providers from even competing with them. It absolutely ties down to money. Why the government is lobbying on behalf of GMO products and not non-GMO products when this is what the market is demanding. You can't tell Mexico, you don't want to do this, don't do this, when there are people willing to meet these needs. If they just shifted their subsidies over to non-GMO providers, because that's what the market is dictating, that absolutely could happen. Why is it not? Now, another thing worth mentioning is that many European countries outlaw GMO crops. So why are they free to do that and Mexico is not?
Well, it's part of again, we control them, right? The United States controls them. They dictate and tell them what's going to happen in North America, right? Like when we talk about the World Cup coming to North America, like it's the United States, right? It's the United States runs the whole chessboard.
Yeah.
And so we get to tell them whatever we want, just like we, as you pointed out, and we talked about this before, about oil and gas and our control over that.
Yes.
Oh, they want to privatize. They want to privatize things? No, sorry. You're not going to be allowed to do that because United States gas companies need to make their money in Mexico.
Yes, in fact, we're going to talk about this because the United States is saying that if they go ahead and put this plan in place to reduce pesticides and GMOs, then the United States will have to, quote, take formal steps to enforce our rights under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. Well, this is the same agreement that they are using to push Mexico to open up their borders to U.S. gas companies. We reported this just last summer. The U.S. is telling Mexico, knock off this state-controlled gas program you've got because we can't compete. We can't get in there with U.S., they're anti-competitive. It's not allowing U.S. gas companies to get in there and raise prices because Mexico has actually had, compared to the United States, relatively stable gas prices as of late. And we can't have that. It's embarrassing when your neighbor is doing okay without sanctions and we're not, and because they have privatized gas. So now the United States is saying they're going to use this same agreement to get in there and make sure that Mexico allows the United States to pervert prices of oil and gas inside. So again, this is the government choosing to work on behalf of big business, in this case, oil and gas, or in the previous case, genetically modified corn. Perhaps, and I'm going to say perhaps they're working harder for big business than they are for their constituents.
Of course they are. And
Mexico better be careful because they'll end up another Puerto Rico or Hawaii if they don't play ball. We'll just take over the country.
Worse to me is the risk of ending up like India, where you end up where Monsanto got so entrenched in their agriculture that they basically had GMO modified grains that would not reseed. And so then the farmers had to buy brand new seed every single season, and they couldn't afford it. So they were the farmers actually started drinking the Monsanto pesticide that was required for their crops as a suicide protest.
Oh my God. Did that happen? I didn't know about this.
Oh yeah, no, that's been going on for years, actually.
What,
And it's so
what
crazy.
do you
Like,
mean by
my word.
won't reseed?
They're created so that they won't reseed them. Like you can't then take remember, you know how we in our garden here will take
We
the
dry
corn,
out the corn.
we dry out the corn and then we
replant
and then
it.
we replant that corn, right? You can't do that with these seeds. They just won't do that. So
Like-
you're reliant on them to give you the seeds for next season.
So they produce infertile crops?
Yes.
Yes.
That's crazy and disgusting.
And
Edible,
there's
but
court
infertile.
cases. If you look on YouTube, there are open court cases where there are people saving seeds, and Monsanto is like going after them for saving seeds.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable how much of our farming Monsanto controls.
Oh, when I lived in Montana, the ranchers had this problem, of course, because the seeds would blow across ranches, across highways. They had no control of it. And then they would go around, like the seed police would go and they'd find their Monsanto seeds on their ranches, but they didn't plant them because they had simply blown there. Didn't matter. So they would be fined as a result of it, and they'd be sued as a result of it. Like, you're using our corn, our seed or not corn in Montana, but our seeds that you didn't pay for are like our Roundup protected seeds or whatever
Yeah.
that you didn't pay for that are growing on your land, and they're able to like spot them, genetically spot them, and know exactly which is a Monsanto seed. It's really, really crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is just, it's so interesting, right? When other countries will make, decisions that they think are good on behalf of their people. And then the United States is saying, you can't do that if it's bad for us.
Jirwa Swam says, yes, Natalie, you act like you're saving the planet. Why would you not know this? Know what? Well, you know about Monsanto.
How have I acted like I'm saving the planet? I don't know.
I don't know what he or she means by that.
Yeah, she changed her watch.
It's because she's wearing green, so she must resemble Captain Planet, and I think that's the connection.
Okay.
Is that
Captain Planet.
I mean, I'm doing my part here, but, I don't know everything.
We apologize for not knowing every story in existence. We will try, though. But every nuance of every story, we work hard on it.
I think people sometimes forget that they went down a path of knowledge as well. They didn't always know. It's like, you got to allow people their own.
No. Jay Swam in our chat was born with all that knowledge.
Oh, okay.
Like was born like that, like omnipotent, has all this power.
Okay.
it's just something. It's just something I've been following for a long time, because I was like, when I first went to university way back in my early 20s, I was actually a environmental chemistry major, and soil science was one of my like things I was really interested in. And I remember hearing back then there were scientists working on GMO crops as a way of increasing yield.
Yes.
And so like I've been following this whole progression of them like working on it to increase yield, to kind of like combat world hunger, and then how Monsanto kind of like figured out a little bit too much, and then that like watching this whole progression of what happened with that idea of saving like ending world hunger to maximizing Monsanto profit. And just the repercussions of it. So it's something I've been paying attention to for a long time, because it's something that I've been interested in for a long time.
Yeah, it's interesting. So then what is your take on these non-GMO producers who are saying, we're ready, send me in, coach? Like, do you think that that's a viable option?
I mean, I guess as far as, I'm not sure, maybe I understand the question. The non-GMO in Mexico?
No, these American farmers in Nebraska, in where are they? Minnesota, who are saying, we're ready though. If Mexico actually implements this, we actually can make the seed.
Right, because we have the seeds. They're not Monsanto-based seeds.
I think it's just a lot like the egg thing. It's like the wrong people are getting blamed for the egg problem too. They can produce the eggs. They have the chickens. They have everything that it takes. But there's something that's failing somewhere else. So it's kind of the same thing. We have farmers at the ready to bring us food. It's just that they're not selecting the right farmers. They're subsidizing the wrong farmers to get us crap food instead of the good farmers and chicken producers, meat producers and things to get us good food.
Yeah, and I read somewhere once, I can't remember now where I read this, but corn is one of the few crops that actually needs intervention from
Humans, it can't grow on its own.
Birds or humans because because its seeds are protected. And so we have to actually open it. It needs mammals or birds or what have you to open it up and propagate it. So, it's possible that you do need more labor in order to propagate corn as a crop. And there are two different types of corns that we're talking about. There's yellow corn, which I think is for animals, and white corn, which is for cooking and humans. And so it's a matter of like which producers are ready to produce non-GMO versions of both.
That's right. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.